Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. And hey, Carla, good to see you again. It's been a minute.
Aloha. Good to see your big bearded face.
It was, oh, thanks. Good to see your purple spiked hair. It was so much fun talking to Denise during our last conversation. I just love her, and she was such a big help to you and to us through all of this GBS journey you've been on.
Yeah, it was awesome. And I got a lot of insights from you guys. When you're on the sick end of things and you're dealing with it from that perspective, you can't filter what's going on elsewhere. So going back over this and telling the story and having you all put your perspective and how you saw things and how it affected you that's been pretty amazing along this little journey with this funky little podcast.
Well, I think, whenever anybody's not feeling like themselves, whether it's something minor like a cold or the flu to something crazy like this, you can't see out of your bubble. You're just worried about what hurts and what you can do to not hurt. You don't really pay attention to anything else. And I think that's valid.
That's true. Really, till I got to the hospital, I was definitely in a bubble. Once
Yeah.
I got there and we knew what was happening, I was able to click out of my bubble and get more back into myself. But till then, it was difficult for
And
me.
if you're just joining us on this third conversation about Carla's journey, we're talking about her um, experience with Guillain-Barré syndrome, which had her partially paralyzed not too long after getting the COVID vaccine. And we're trying to piece together what that journey was like, what we learned, what we saw, what we loved, what we hated, and how we got through to the other side. In all honesty, we're trying to piece this together as best we can because I know you and I were both just trying to get through this together. And some background, we've known each other forever. We've had each other's back, whether it was relationships crumbling or somebody's sick or somebody has to move. I mean, we've always kind of bounced through this stuff together, but this was like our biggest challenge that we ever had to go through and to figure out. And we just couldn't get answers. And where we talked with Denise was you had finally gone to the ER, didn't really get the answers you needed or wanted. And then you're back at home still feeling awful. And Denise and I and some other friends are just kind of taking turns making sure you're okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And I remember there were days that it was all I could do because of the hyperimmune response, which we didn't know that's what it was at the time. I
Right.
just had all these things. It's like I was in a full blown panic attack 24/7 that wouldn't stop. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. Felt like I was going to jump out of my skin all the time. Even a drink of water would trigger it. We later found out what was happening was everything that entered my body because my immune system was attacking itself that it thought it was something there to attack me. It went from I could eat a couple bites of this to a couple bites of that to I could eat egg whites, then I couldn't eat those. I was losing a pound a day, which that wasn't altogether a terrible, terrible thing, except when you're not getting nutrients, I just got so incredibly weak.
Yeah.
And you guys, all you could do was sit and kind of stare at me. I would just be setting up all day long, just trying to breathe and calm my nervous system. I was lucky if I could get 2 or 3 hours of sleep a
Yeah.
night.
It's kind of like, I've never had children and I've not been around many children, but I imagine it's like when you set a baby on the couch and you wait for it to tip over and you're ready to catch it. It's kind of like how I felt with you. And what we had to do next was start navigating doctors to try to get some answers. And that was really hard because we didn't know what we were going into. We had to you had to tell your story repeatedly. And I was just the guy who was pushing you in a wheelchair to try to get you there. So I figured this time we talk around that and what that experience was like because it was still hard to get any answers.
Yeah. And if I remember correctly, it's hard when you're out of it to like get the order right again. I kind of wish I would have documented more during, but again, all you're doing is just trying to get through it, trying to
Right.
get through it, trying to get through it. But if I remember correctly, I believe our first doctor visit was with my primary care. And we didn't actually see him the first visit. We wound up seeing him twice before I wound up in the hospital. But the first time we saw his PA, which was a lovely human.
Mhm.
And he did the best he could, but he had to refer to the doctor because he didn't really know what was going on either. And we actually was just talking to them about this hyperactive, like panic type thing I was having constantly and not being able to eat. And they could see I was dropping weight at a very, very unhealthy rate. A pound a day is not a good, sometimes it was 2 pounds in a day, was not a good way to lose weight, and not a good, what's the word I'm looking for? Wasn't a good rhythm of
Right.
losing weight. It was very unhealthy. And I was definitely not getting nutrients. I was getting very weak. But we first met with the PA and told him of my problems. And he's like, let me talk to the doctor. And then he comes back and he's like, Doc wants you to see a psychiatrist, which we're going to see as a theme throughout all this till we got some doctors that knew what they were doing and made some sense. But it was see a psychiatrist and do just eat bland, mild foods. It's probably something in your stomach, just eat bland foods. So I believe it was 2 weeks and nothing got any better. I know the period from the first emergency room visit to the hospital was a 2 month period. Right, it
Hmm.
was right at 8 weeks that I suffered with this and was going downhill and couldn't figure anything out. And I believe it was 2 weeks later I was even worse. What little bit I could eat, now I couldn't eat. It had went from bad to worse.
Hmm.
So we made another appointment, and this time the PA had the doctor come in and see me, and he was extremely dismissive, and said, just do the brat diet, which was bread, rice, applesauce, and toast. We tried that. That did not go well. I continued to get worse. And again, he said, go see a psychiatrist. You're having panic attacks. Again, I'm a coach and a life coach, and I help people with panic attacks, and they don't last 24/7 and never go away.
Right.
They also are more in your chest and like your head. They don't really start in the pit of your stomach, which is where your immune system gets active and starts attacking, is in your stomach. You can feel it in the very, I call it the pit of hell at the time, but it's the pit of your stomach. That's where it is happening. And so I knew it wasn't a panic attack. So the next doctor he recommended, we finally got a referral to go see a rheumatologist, I believe. Is that right, Steve?
I think you're right. Yes.
And before I go any further, up until this point, why don't you tell us kind of what you were thinking, what you were seeing, and what was happening in your world? I know what was happening in mine, but I couldn't get out of my bubble to see what might be happening in yours. So why don't you share that with us?
Well, it's an interesting question. Are you talking in reference to what was going on with you, or in general, or all the above?
Yep. All
Okay.
the above,
Well,
like, watching me go through it, having a couple of doctors already not giving an answer. Like, what's that like for you?
well, frustrating one because the doctor we were visiting had been my doctor for a long time and had always been great with me. So it was very disappointing, not naming any names, but it was very disappointing to see the treatment that you were receiving and how it seemed so different than what I was receiving. Now, of course, I didn't have these issues. I was healthy. I was just getting treated, in general, just as a, regular checkup kind of a thing. But it was frustrating to see the level of care so much lower than what I had expected from him. So there was disappointment in that aspect as well. On top of all this, we were not living together. I was driving down to come pick you up, take you to this, and I did not mind, to go to the doctor to get your meds, whatever. And luckily, I had a job at the time that was very flexible and was mostly remote thanks to the pandemic, and it remained that way after the pandemic. Um, but on the same side, I had just moved into a house that I had rented. I was dating, not my now husband. We were still in the dating stages, and even though we had known each other for a long time, we were still in that part of the honeymoon phase. Um, and the job, and I was doing a podcast on spooky haunted locations. So there was like all this other stuff that just needed to step aside, and which was fine. But I in my brain, I think I thought that we're suddenly going to find the answer to this and you're going to be fine. Because I'm always Mr. Optimistic, which can be super annoying to a lot of people. But I think that I was just like, we're going to find that key, that one key, and this is all going to be okay. But it was like all these keys later. It's like whenever you play a video game when you're a kid and there's all these side quests you have to go on to find the main thing. That's exactly what this felt like. And when we finally heard the word rheumatologist, I think I was like, oh, that sounds like a thing. That could be an answer to this. And I remember going with you to the rheumatologist, not really knowing what to expect.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I'm like, finally, a specialist. They're going to
Mhm.
take one look at me. They're going to know. And there were all these little bubbles of hope along the way, and people were just popping my balloons along the
That's a
way.
good way to put
And,
it.
and you get to a point where you're like, I don't want to hope, but me and you both, it's our natural mode of operating is optimism and hope. And no matter how unpleasant it was for me or unhappy, I still had this hope. I'm like, okay, this one's going to fix it, right? Because I'm a
Right.
problem solver. So I'm like, these doctors, that's really what they are. They're problem solvers. So I'm like, rheumatology, never heard of that. They specialize, they this, they that. They're very niched. Yay, this is going to fix it. So we see the rheumatologist, and she's like, yeah, I got no idea. Maybe a psychiatrist.
And we were back to that.
Yeah. And I remember one of the few things I remember on your side of the coin was when we left there and we got in the vehicle. I remember you being less than enthusiastic. And you were like, I believe you said something like, well, that was a waste and she was of no help. And your frustration was beginning to seep out. And I'm like, I'm a little disappointed too. Did she tell us to see an immunologist? Was it her that said that's where we should go next? Or did I Google that? Do you remember?
I honestly don't remember. I mean, you did such a good job of researching and trying to figure stuff out. I would not be surprised if you found it yourself, but I'm not 100% sure.
Boy, I learned people really got to be their own advocates. And as we
Yeah.
go through this story, you'll hear points where I was my own advocate, or we've already heard where Denise was an advocate, that I had to be like, no, I'm not doing that, or no, that's not right, or no, I know this is, I need this.
Hmm.
And just, people would not listen. But I believe I Googled to come up with immunologist. And then I believe my primary care's PA gave me the referral to go see the immunologist.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I distinctly remember you being very downtrodden about the rheumatologist.
Well, I think it's because it was a term I hadn't heard of really, and I didn't know what it was, and it had to be the key, And I keep using the term key, but there's really no other way to put it. It's like, how are we going to unlock whatever this is? But I do know that when the immunologist idea, wherever that came from, whether you Googled it or whatever, you probably Googled it. I think that was the same kind of thing. Like, okay, well, maybe this is the actual key of what we need to do, and what does this do?
Yeah, I think I did Google it because I think I picked her because she was hot. I remember
So,
that being the case. I'm like, she's really cute. Let's go there.
sounds
I
right.
need a little something to help me along this journey because I'm absolutely miserable. At this point, I was starting to be scared for my life. I wasn't there yet, but I was getting there. And starting to think, what if? What
Mhm.
if, and I'm usually, what if it works out for you? What if it goes exactly right? What if it happens to be the happiest choice you ever made? I'm not usually a what if
Yeah.
they don't know. What if they can't fix it? I'm like, I'm not living like this. This is no quality of life. It's just not something I'm going to do. Right. So, so then I'm like, well, she's going to be nice to look at. Let's go here.
Like you said, it gave you something at least.
Yeah. And I will say she was fantastic. And
Yeah.
I feel like she did everything within her power to look for answers. Um, she was a part of a team of 17 immunologists. On top of, she was on a board of an international team of immunologists that she conferred with and did
Yeah.
a international call trying to find answers for me. She had a bunch of tests run on me, and they came back with numbers that none of these immunologists had ever seen. They were higher numbers than any of them had seen. And I should have got the exact verbiage for what they're all three called, but there's three things in our chart that show inflammation and disease and these other things. And they were all higher than they've ever seen them, and they've never seen them all three lit up at once. Remember her saying that?
I do.
And I'm like, what do we do? And she said, I wish I knew. Now, this is a lady who clearly goes out of her way for her clients. She clearly searches for answers. She had all these other people she consulted, probably 50 immunologists in all, from around the globe,
Hmm.
and nobody knew. At that point, I started to sink.
Yeah.
At that, because had no idea what to even remotely do next.
Yeah, I mean
You know,
it's like that that meme or that joke where, the doctor tells, somebody that, I have good news and bad news for you. You have a really horrible disease. And, okay, well, what's the good news? Well, we get to name it after you because nobody's ever had it before. So that's kind of where we felt like with you. It's like, what is this the Carla disease? How has it that nobody has ever heard of this condition?
you remember we actually joked about that. It's one
Hmm.
of the times, there was some laughter along the way with you and Denise. Once in a while, you all could get me to laugh, and then I would be like, "Stop! I have to calm my system," and I would start my Buddha breathing again, trying to calm my system down because it was hard. You couldn't even have enjoyment without ramping up my system and making it even worse.
Right.
Which was laughter has always been my medicine. So when I couldn't have that, it got kind of difficult. But I remember us joking about, of course, if it's going to be something super weird and super rare, it's going to happen to me. And it was this
You're
big
gonna be
old
famous.
joke. Yeah, but I couldn't even really laugh about it because literally my system would start going crazy. I don't even know how to explain this feeling and what was happening in my body to people. Anybody out there who's ever had a hyperimmune response is going to understand what I'm saying. If you've never had that exact thing, you're not going to understand what I'm saying.
And I'd be interested if you're listening to this on YouTube and you've had this experience, let us know, in the comments how you explained what was going on with you, or if you helped somebody through this, let us know how you handled it because I know every situation is different. And of course, make sure you like us and subscribe so that we can continue this conversation and keep everybody involved. Um, I think it's important to remind everybody too, though, Carla, that while you're going through all of this, we're trying to find the right doctor, we're trying to get answers, is you're not getting new meds. You're not getting new things to make you feel better. You're just pushing through this whole time.
Correct.
Yeah.
That is correct. And I'll be honest, the only thing that got me through was um, a friend happened to have some extra Xanax. And it's the only thing that would allow me to even, because it got to where I was only sleeping like an hour, 45 minutes.
Hmm.
It was progressively getting worse. It wasn't like it got to a fever pitch level and it just stopped. Everything kept getting worse. It was getting worse. I was dropping weight. Then I began to be nauseous all the time. Then I was dizzy all the time. I don't know what of that is contributed to malnutrition and what of that was contributed to the actual disease. But I very distinctly remember there was a time that I believe you and Denise were switching shifts and I was only alone for like 30 minutes.
Hmm.
And I had tried to go from the recliner to the bed. And I got to the doorway of the kitchen and I'm like, I'm not going to make it. It's more steps to the bed than it is back to the recliner. And so I go back to the recliner, and it was all I could do to get myself set back down. My system is electrified, going crazy, but I'm breathless. I can't hardly breathe because just those few steps exasperated me, absolutely exasperated me. And I remember calling you at that point, and that's when I said, I think these doctors are going to mess around and let me die. Remember
Yeah,
that call?
I remember that call very clearly.
What was, how were you with, I'm sorry I dumped that on you, by the way,
Oh,
but
I was like, oh, this is great. I'm going to Disney World. No. No, I mean, I think that's what's so important for people to understand about our friendship is that we're more family than friends and chosen family, which is even stronger than family, in my opinion. And we've dumped a lot of stuff on each other over the years. And that was a a big dump. But it was honest and it was pure. And I appreciated you being so blunt with me. And it made me continue to realize, if not realize more, that, wow, this is a serious thing and we've got to figure this out. Otherwise, we're going to become a Lifetime movie, and I don't want that to happen. So I think that's when there was a shift in me too, to like up the game of helping you to figure out what was going on. I remember having a conversation with my coworkers, I'm going to be working remotely, not at my home, at your house, at doctor's office or whatever. And they were all wonderful and very kind to understand what I was doing to help you out. So I'm very, very grateful to those folks. But I think it kind of jolted me back into how serious it was. Not that I went off of that, but it just kind of kept me focused. And I think that it just kind of intensified the need to get answers. But it also intensified my need to try to keep your optimism up because I saw it fading, even though mine was too. And I think that was the hard thing because, like you've said a few times, we always joke, and that's how we always get through stuff together. It was getting harder and harder to do that, especially after that conversation.
and I want to say it was only probably 2 days after that call, maybe three. I just had this intuition. I'm like, if I don't get somewhere else where somebody can keep an eye on me literally 24/7, I need to be where someone else is, or I'm going to die in this house. I just knew it with everything in me. I knew it. And then I remember making the call to you and said, I think I'm going to have to move. I need to be with somebody. You said you did not hesitate. You're like, you can absolutely come here.
Oh, I
Remember
meant to
that?
say, oh, we'll get you a home, but no, no, of course. I mean, of course not. I mean, I went through nothing like this, but I remember going through a really, really bad breakup years ago, and you were my first call. You're where I went to. You helped me through that. Again, it's just what we kind of do. And it was interesting because not when we had that call and we said, okay, this is going to happen, it feels like things moved so quickly because I had a two-bedroom home. One room was my bedroom, one room was my office. I'm like, okay, got to convert the office into a bedroom, got to get that ready for you, got to get this squared away. And like everything kind of shifted into getting ready for you to come. But there was a lot we had to do at your place too.
It was a 3 bedroom. You had a 3 bedroom, two bath.
Oh, yeah, you're
I
right.
mean,
You're right. I forgot about the other room we use as a gym.
yeah, which wound up, that's going to come into the story later on. And it was a big part of the journey.
You're right. Three
Um,
bedroom, two bath.
thank God for that weight room, man. But yeah, so this little tiny, the room was a 10 by 10, the size of a vendor tent. And I'm like, that was my sick room. But you know what? That was my absolute safety. I
Mhm.
felt better after the phone call with you saying I need to move. And you're like, when? And I'm like, my instincts are telling me the sooner the better. And you're like, okay, then that's when. And I literally, a friend of mine, Jessica, came over and she helped me put clothes in a bag to bring to your house. And I think one box of stuff and everything else. I'm just like, sell it, give it away, get rid of it, clean out the house. You know,
And there was
I'm
a small, I don't know if it was just days or what, where a bed showed up on my front door that you had ordered, and I put that together and put it in your room because it could elevate um, the all kinds of weird stuff. showed up to be able to help you.
Guardrail on it and a
Yeah.
small recliner because I'm like, I want to be able to set up in the room. I didn't want to be
Mhm.
in your way. I knew I'd either be in bed or just setting up because that's all I could do, right? I
Mhm.
couldn't venture outside. I couldn't do anything. I was weak as a run over dog. So,
Yeah.
and I remember you had to put my dresser together.
Oh, the dresser, the shelves.
All
Oh
the
my gosh.
stuff kept showing up. Like I immediately went online and just got stuff and got it. I think Denise helped me order stuff too because I couldn't really. I was having trouble functioning, and I couldn't clean
Mhm.
out my own house. Jessica did that for
Well,
me.
it was interesting too, as this stuff is showing up. And of course, you told me what was coming. It wasn't like I'd open the door and be like, "Oh, a dresser." I knew stuff was coming. But, it was a weird feeling of like, oh, it was like excitement because, oh, my best friend's coming to live with me again. This is going to be fun. But then there was like the realization that, okay, this is not a regular bed. This is a bed to help her get up. And this is not a regular recliner. This is a recliner to help her mobility. And I think the thing that I don't remember if you had already moved in or not, but I remember the thing you sent that like really like drove it home was the attachment we put on the couch to help you sit and stand. It had the little handles on it and it like went under the cushion. And I remember looking at it and going like, what is it? What the hell is this? How does this work? Um, and then we determined where you would like to sit, and then that became your spot. So it was this weird transition from this bachelor pad place that I was so excited and happy to call my own to, oh, I have my favorite roommate back again to the medical aspect mixed into it as well. So it was like all these three things piecing together, which was interesting.
Yeah, and you had the dynamic of poor Tim, he's staying with you a lot. You guys are working on this relationship. You're in the beginning, wonderful phases, and then here comes this little weak lesbian that can't get around. We have no idea what's wrong with her, but she's going to be staying right over there. So that's what's about to happen, and he was so accommodating, so gracious, so kind. That was very important also.
And I remember one night in particular, morning, night, I don't remember. It was dark, but he was at the house, and I guess Denise had called or you had called. I had to rush out to your place. I think I was relieving Denise one day. And we woke up with the call and I told him, I'm like, I have to go to Carla's house. I have to go make sure she's okay. And he was just like, fine, I'm here if you need me, go do what you got to do. So throughout all of that, he was very supportive. And that's not easy, whether you're in a long-term relationship or just kind of starting out, to kind of deal with the friend dynamic that's been in a place for so long and then to elevate it to that. So yeah, definitely props to him for helping us out and being so understanding that this had to happen. And then when you did move in, three of us were kind of like roommates for a while.
Yeah, and as we get into post hospital stuff, there'll
Yeah.
be big stories there, and as we get into the stories of on the next episode of me, now I'm in the house and what's happening there and kind of things he had to deal with. I think it'd be cool to have him on and get his perspective of watching all of that because he had a real bird's eye view of a lot of it once I was in the house,
Yeah. Yeah. And it
both pre and post hospital.
that's
He got
true.
both.
And I
And
think that
while I was in the hospital, I'm sure he has insights on what you went through that I couldn't see.
perhaps he may have some insight. Yeah, because there were times that he was at the house when I would run to the hospital and so we made it work, which was fantastic. And he was allergic to cats, but helped take care of your cat that you had at the time. So there was all kinds of stuff swirling around. And I think that, as we continue this conversation forward, next time we can talk about you moving in, the boxes of and boxes and boxes of food that showed up and all the rest of your stuff as we kind of transition into having you at the house. And I see that all very, very clearly. And I think the thing I remember the most, which we'll talk about next time, is this massive, the biggest bag I've ever seen of tater tots in my life showed up from your bags of stuff. And we'll talk about that more, but we're talking like a pillowcase size.
I know. I remember y'all making tons of fun of me. So again, we just, no matter how difficult it was, We just didn't change how we function, as much as we couldn't, like, especially once I was diagnosed, then the teasing really started again. Like, we always
We had
razz
an
each other
answer. Yeah.
razz each other pretty good. Once we had the answer, the razzing really kicked in big time because we'd been saving some of it for a couple of months. So it got pretty funny there for a while. But I remember, as we stopped this episode with me having moved in your house, I remember very, very distinctly how safe I felt.
Well, good. Well, I think that was
Always,
the
I always end every episode with a cry. What is that about?
big crybaby. Um,
I have a cancer. We know I'm a big crybaby.
well, no, and I think I felt a big sense of relief that you were there because I could keep an eye on you, and I knew that you had started to have these numb feelings. You were unbalanced. I was like, at least I'm there to, if not catch you, at least pick you up. Instead of being like, oh, I'll be there in 20 minutes to help. I was there. So I think that brought our anxiety level was super high, but I think it brought it down a little bit, knowing that we were able to be in such close proximity to each other. And again, another huge benefit of the pandemic was that I was working from home, so I was there all the time.
Yeah, and I say all the time, for it to be bad, it was good. There was a lot of good things that happened, like the fact that I've honed my intuition being a coach and getting through some of the things I have in life. My intuition knew it was time to move. Um, and I didn't have any numbness. I was only wobbly and weak. Prior to moving in with you, my numbness started immediately after I
Mhm.
moved in. I definitely had this kind of knowing, and we'll start with that part, going forward in our next episode.
And my last question for you, or maybe it's more of a clarification. We talked a lot about how doctors kept saying, oh, you need to talk to a psychiatrist. Um, I want to be clear, and I think I know you well enough that I know the answer to this. You're not anti-psychiatry, and psychiatrists do great things. The reason it didn't work for you is because you knew that wasn't your issue.
Correct. And I did wind up, I don't remember at what
Usually.
stage I went to the psychiatrist.
It was after the
Uh,
hospital, I believe.
huh?
I think it was after the hospital.
Yeah, but I remember her um being amazing.
Mhm.
And she was like, "Yeah, they should have never thought this was a panic attack." Like, she was dumbfounded. This was what the doctors were saying.
Right.
The fact that they didn't dig any deeper in the very beginning. But again, in their defense, something they had not seen before. And
Right.
even the immunologists who were listening, who were digging, who were looking at blood tests, were clueless.
Well, and it's
That's when panic set in for me.
yeah, and
Now
I think it's
somebody's listening, now they're looking and they don't know.
right,
Now what?
right.
Now what?
And psychiatry comes at different angles at this. The doctors were saying, "Oh, this is all in your head. You're fine." When it should have been, you should probably talk to a psychiatrist and see how this is affecting your life and what you can do and how you can handle it. So, which we eventually got to, but I just wanted to clarify that as we talked here. But um, this is where the story gets, at least from my standpoint, because I had a front row seat, much more involved, much more intriguing, much more scary and exciting. And I'm excited to kind of talk about what happens next whenever you do settle in and we go from there. So, a lot more to tell of this story. Any final thoughts before we say goodbye on this one?
Um, no, I don't think so. I think we're headed a good direction. Come back and join us, and let's see what happened next. Because once I get moved in, it starts to move at a very fast pace, and it starts to get real interesting.
That's a good way to put it. Well, we appreciate everybody tuning in and listening and or watching wherever this lands. Um, Shoot us a message, leave comments. We'd love to engage with you. The whole point of this is to share that things happen that doctors can't help with immediately, to let people know that there's hope to find answers. You just have to be patient, and the importance of having the right people around you to find those answers. So until next time, Carla, I will see you whenever we chat again about the next chapter.
All right. See you next go around.
All right. Love your hair. Hope you win. Bye, everybody.